Off the eastern coast of Mozambique in Africa is an island country called Comoros. Prior to its French occupation in 1841, the islands were known by its Arabic name Comora. There's an 1808 map of Africa that refers to the islands as Comora. The largest city and capital of Comoros, formerly Comora, Moroni. Comora and settlement Moroni were common names in pirate and treasure hunting stories involving Captain William Kidd, a pirate and treasure hunter which many 19th century New Englanders, especially treasure hunters, were familiar with. Captain William Kidd, born January 22nd, 1645, and died 23rd of May, 1701, was a Scottish sailor who was tried and executed for piracy after returning from a voyage to the Indian Ocean. In September 1696, Kidd weighed anchor and set course for the Cape of Good Hope. A third of his crew soon perished on the Comoros due to an outbreak of cholera. Prior to Kidd returning to New York City, he learned that he was a wanted pirate. The belief that Kidd had left buried treasure contributed considerably to the growth of his legend. It also gave impetus to the constant treasure hunts conducted on Oak Island in Nova Scotia, in Suffolk County, Charles Island in Milford, Connecticut, the Thimble Islands in Connecticut, Cocono Islands in Westport, Connecticut, and on the island of Grand Manan in the Bay of Fundy. Captain Kidd did bury a small cache of treasure on Gardiner's Island in a spot known as Cherry Tree Field, hoping to use his knowledge of its location as a bargaining tool. However, it was removed and sent to England to be used as evidence against him.
The Smith family and many of their acquaintances were heavily involved in the search for Captain Kidd's buried treasure.
In the Wayne Sentinel in Palmyra, New York, February 16, 1825 edition of the newspaper, it states, "We are sorry to observe, even in this enlightened age, so prevalent a disposition to credit the accounts of the marvelous. Even the frightful stories of money being hid under the surface of the earth and enchanted by the devil or Robert Kidd are received by many of our respectable fellow citizens as truths." Notice that this is considered prevalent and received by many of our respectable fellow citizens as truths. The above contemporary 1825 Palmyra, New York newspaper, quote, was not tainted by any desire to damage Joseph Smith. This article provides a snapshot of the worldview of 1825 New England. Pomeroy Tucker was born in Palmyra, New York in 1802, 3 years before Joseph Smith. He's considered to be a contemporary source. This is what he said about Joseph Smith. Joseph had learned to read comprehensively, reading works of fiction and records of criminality, such for instance as would be classed with the dime novels of the present day. The stories of Stephen Burroughs and Captain Kidd and the like presented the highest charms for his expanding mental perceptions. Some apologists say that Tucker's Mormonism, its origin, rise, and progress, is anti-Mormon, and thus anything in the book cannot be trusted. The problem with this premise is that LDS scholar and church history compiler B.H. Roberts quoted Tucker for background information on Joseph, and Fair has an article where they quoted Tucker 4 times from his book as support for Joseph, and even referred to Tucker as an eyewitness to Joseph and his family. Is Tucker's peripheral information only useful and accurate when it shows Joseph and the church in a positive and favorable light? The hill Comora and Moroni have absolutely nothing to do with Comora and Moroni from Captain Kidd stories. Stories that Joseph and his treasure hunting family and buddies were familiar with.